Hey, everybody out there in YouTube land. This is your T-shirted historian coming at you with kind of a little bit of an extra special here. I finally managed to snag Vigilante Williamson and get him on the show for a little bit, so I figure we'll sit back, rap a little bit about pop culture and stuff. And hey, how you doing, Vigilante?
Doing pretty good. That's a pretty cool intro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. That's what we normally use for the Saturday night show. I didn't have anything special made up for our getting together. Otherwise, I would have put together a little bit more of a specialized, personalized stream. But
still pretty cool. Still really cool.
Well, thank you. All right, man. Well, you're a guy who gets around on the Twitter and on the YouTube, man. So I'm so excited that you're here. I finally get a chance to get you in here and talk with you about some stuff. So I want to know, man, what are you reading right now?
Not as much. So what am I? I haven't really reading anything. I bought 2 issues of the last Ronin. And I bought I actually had that on my the worst episode, the worst stream I ever did solo Saturday, where I ended up cutting myself opening the package. Oh, real quick, Vigilante Wednesday on the first episode on a t-shirt historians channel that I've ever been on, and could have been last week, but I overslept. So there's that. But yeah, so I got that a while ago and just hadn't opened it. I haven't really had time to read stuff. I'm trying to make more time to read stuff. So reading, I'm not really, I'm not really consuming any pop culture instead of outside safe stuff, stuff that like Batman animated series. I'll just watch it. I'm bored. I'll watch an episode of that, and I watch a lot of YouTube. Or one thing I'm finding, and it's funny, Wait Now's in the chat. He actually had some of the stuff on his channel, but old Looney Tunes. Somehow the algorithm got me down that hole because I was watching the old Fleischer Superman cartoons.
Oh yeah,
and so old animations kind of a thing I'll check out on YouTube from time to time. And man, is it so much better than what we have just from a visual standpoint. It's so smooth.
Oh yeah, man. You can go back and look at that old Tugboat Willie cartoon. With Steamboat Willie.
Yeah. Which should be in the public domain pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10 years or something, unless they Disney it up. But
it's Disney kind of. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. Animation back in that day was so beautiful. It's that was the heyday. They knocked it out of the park at the inception of animation. Not that there's not beautiful animated stuff, since then, but just as an era, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we have today. It really feels like it's kind of mass produced and maybe a little bit choppy, because it's the old stuff seemed like it really ran at 60 frames per second, and you could tell by how fluidly the animation was.
Yeah.
But now
it was very time consuming, don't get me wrong, but it paid off.
Mm-hmm. It was good stuff. I mean, it's I hate to say this because I always feel like this is kind of overstated, but it seemed like people really cared back then,
I mean, it's overstated, but it's true. People did. People cared more back then. I mean, I think, and I mean, even as recent as a few years ago, or 10 to 20 years ago, I feel like in the 90s there were still people who cared. But then again, the 90s had a lot of emulation. You had the Iron Giant, you had Batman animated series, you had things like that wanted to harken back. If you're talking about animation in that era, or if you're talking about movies, you had the independent movement. You had Robert Rodriguez, and you had a bunch of directors. A bunch of directors, Tarantino, and just an indie director movement, whether you like them or not. Now Kevin Smith with Clerks, these guys who had small budgets but really cared about what they were doing, and everything's corporate now. So I don't know how, as someone who's dabbled in creativity, I have no idea. It's hard enough to create something at all because there's nothing scarier than that blank page and that blank canvas. I'm sorry for rambling, man. You can always cut me off.
No, man, you're good. I'm loving it, and I'm glad you mentioned it that way, because that is something I have noticed and friends of mine have noticed and commented on before, is that a lot of these guys, when they were hungry and they were up and coming. They did some of their best work, and once they hit the mainstream and they hit the $1 million marks and all that, the quality of their stuff just dropped into the toilet,
Yeah.
And
I think that's across the board with anything. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. You're not interrupting me, man. I'm listening. I'm talking with you. All right. And Zach says, like, have you seen the way that Disney reused their animation? I mean, you'd have to give me an example, I guess. All I know Disney's doing these days is turning all their old cartoons, which, I mean, speaking of animation, some of those were just beautiful. That old Sleeping Beauty cartoon, man, that was something. Old Fantasia, woo.
Fantasia, that was kind of a noteworthy for its animation. They're just making, the live action thing. We talk a lot about woke and all that stuff in a fandom, and I think and we should, right? But sometimes we can miss just bad things that are just not being done well. Because I've always said wokeness is a symptom, and there's a lot to it, of course, but the reason it's adopted so across the board is not just whatever the exozone's on, so we can call it exozone style. Conspiracy theories, but there's also just the ability to hide incompetence, and there's so much incompetence and laziness and apathy, and a lot of that's been the corporate structure itself. I mean, I think that that's where good creatives go to die, and shitty ass kissers thrive. That's how the corporate world works, and our media and our art is suffering because of it.
It is. Zach says they reused some sequences and kind of reskinned them for different movies. If I'm not mistaken, a lot of that old stuff, all the way up through the 80s by Funimation, was rotoscoped, which is, they actually took live actors and photo by photo, they would literally like draw them out on paper. So, and then they would use those animation sequences over and over and over. You used to see it a lot in the old He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon, where you'd see like the same animation used over and over. And I think Super Friends and some of the other shows had that going on too. Keith Moncrief would actually know more about that than I would, but he's kind of an expert.
That's common practice. I know I have like Batman animated series on DVD. Actually, I have that from Surfing High Season to get an official version. And also have Superman animated series, which I do have official. And in the commentary, Bruce Timm talks about reusing shots and reusing things throughout, reusing models, reusing explosions, things like that. So it's a semi-common practice. And if you're talking about Disney, if you remember, I mean, all those princesses spin the same. If you notice, you know what I mean?
They do.
Whether it's Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, they all do this little spin and it's the exact same motion. So but I mean, I'd much rather get derivative shots that are beautifully done than get derivative garbage of just direct that we get now.
Yeah, I agree. Now, one of the movies I picked up recently, and I mean I've seen it before, but I don't recall them using a lot of reskin sequences or anything like that, and because it's completely rotoscoped original. I mean, have you ever heard of the film Fire and Ice?
I don't think I have.
Oh, man. Okay. Fire and Ice was kind of partially done by Frank Frazetta, the master artist. And, as a story, the story is pretty much, sci-fi fantasy type. But the animation is just unbelievable. It is so fluid. They look like actual people, but they're like drawn in. Something which I guess we would take for granted because we could do it in like 15 seconds on a computer these days. But back then, everything was all hand animated, and it's just like, it's gorgeous. Let me see if I might be able to pick up some clips and stuff from the internet. Maybe I won't get. Maybe I won't get. Nah, I won't. They're always, and you got to be careful with that, man. YouTube is always kind of moving the goalposts, man.
Man, I still, to this day, I made fun of, I don't know if you know about wrestling. There's a company called AEW. I made fun of them in episode 43 of the Vigilante Williamson show, it's lost to time and space, and there's nothing I can do about it. They're evil. I'm at a minute of this 3-hour podcast. I made fun of one of their entrances. I have resubmitted a counter notification twice. It's been well past the 14-day mark or whatever, the 10 business day mark. They will not remove the claim. Right at the time I contacted them, they gave me like this form message, so they ignored me. I said I would delete it because I don't give a shit about it. It's right around a minute, and they will not remove it. I was making fun of it. It's commentary. It's fair use. They won't remove the claim, and I have a strike on my channel, and I will never be able to get that episode back. And there's nothing I can do about it because they're big. They're a big company. So, and they just and they were doing a bunch of YouTube channels. Not like I got singled out. They did the Naughty Dog thing, but it's wrestling, so nobody really paid attention to it. So even channels that didn't even have footage got hit too. But mine's never got reversed. I've submitted multiple claims. I'm doing everything I can, and that's how it is. So that's why I'm always a lot more cautious. I just don't play stuff on my channel anymore because I just don't want the smoke of this. And it's bullshit because these big companies just bully people.
They do. And, you know, my biggest problem these days is I love music, and I love to have music with my videos. I like to do like specialized stuff with it. The thing is, you know, they will nail you for just like anything that you use. I mean, even if you use like, you know, like a 5-second clip of some music or something, you know, all of a sudden you're getting, you know, copyright. Like, hey, you know what? This is, you know, copyrighted in, you know, like Sweden or something. And, you know, you can't do that. So
completely, yes. But so what do you do? So yeah, be careful. I hope, you know, if we play clip and not, you know, I wonder if I have seen it back in the day.
All right.
That was one of the movies that I looked it up while we were talking. I'm like, you know, some of it looks familiar.
Well, let me pull some out. Hang on, I got it all. I'm downloading like crazy over here, so if you're hearing clacking on the keyboard, but here we go. Let me pull up some photos.
Yeah, it's a bit safer. Stills.
Yeah, stills is always safer. All right, so this is from the title. Right there. Yeah. It's grainy. I'm sorry, but I mean, look at that, man. Look at that, the beautiful, that black and white contrasting artwork. That's just Frank Frazetta. Look at the physique on the characters, man. And that's just the cover.
Yeah.
Squeak is like, yeah, it was a little bit Conan-like, He-Man-ish. It's because it's Frank Frazetta. It's great, big, strong-looking characters. You know, women who are kind of like damsels in distress sort of thing.
And drawing to be like women, they can't draw that now. That's male gaze objectifying now, man.
Straight up.
Yeah. None of that allowed.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for the graininess of these because they're low res images, but I mean you could see this is what the actual film looks like.
Yeah.
You know, it has great characters in it. It's you know, like I said, story wise, it's kind of like run of the mill fantasy sword and sorcery type stuff. But I mean, for the time it was made, and you know just how good the artwork looks, it's pretty off the chain. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, you say run of the mill, but the run of the mill stuff from the past it's aged like wine or whiskey, if you prefer. But I mean, it's just it's so much better. I remember a few months ago, me and Matt did a thing on their stream on From Dusk to Dawn, and that movie was so much better. And like I said, I was how we even started this conversation on animation. We're watching the Fleischer cartoons and Merry Melodies and a bunch of other older style animation, and it looks so much better. And I took it for granted when this stuff used to play all the time as a kid. And even Fire and Ice, I feel like it's something that I probably didn't see, but I've seen parts of and was somewhat aware of. Like it was on. I know I'm not sure how old the audience is, but if you kids remember back in the days where like cable existed, this thing called cable, and sometimes they would have like free Cinemax, free HBO, and they would play cool stuff and like something that like this was on that one day. That's what it feels like. And I may not have saw it all or did see it and forgot it, but it looks very familiar.
Yeah, if I could get away with showing trailers and stuff of it, I definitely would. But I'd have YouTube knocking on my door, going, "Hey, excuse me, from here to here, you used something that was copyrighted." If you get time, it's on Blu-ray. The print is really beautiful. Check it out. You will not be upset. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, and in general, with pop culture, we're gonna have to go in the past to get good stuff. Did you see Black Widow?
I have not seen it yet. All the reviews, I've heard mixed reviews about it. Cameron Pasha enjoyed it. Most of my friends who've seen it did not enjoy it. Mostly what I hear, the disappointment is about Taskmaster, of course, because first off, she looks like a Power Ranger, and second, it's a she, not a he, and that's kind of damning to those of us who are big old comic book fans.
Well, canon doesn't matter. They'll ruin your ruin your mythos in a second, baby. Is that what Waititi said? Something like that.
Yeah, good old Taika. Thor Ragnarok was fun, but looking back at him, kind of like that actually kind of damaged Thor.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
You did not see it?
Nah, because I like Marvel's been on the outs with me for a while. Like I'll catch some stuff, but starting after Civil War, I started to say, okay. Well, actually, it really started at Age of Ultron, which I know some people do like. A lot of people feel like me. A lot of people actually like that movie, and not all, but most of them have some sort of entertainment value, and maybe that's probably what's carrying this Black Widows. A lot of it, apparently, maybe those numbers are fake. Made like $200 million, all things considered. Marvel. So I missed a lot of the Marvel movies because I started to say, not all of these are really worth my time. And I skipped Thor Ragnarok. I skipped Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I think Endgame was the Endgame, even though I did watch WandaVision, and that burnt me too. So after WandaVision, I'm like, I'm done. I'm just not even gonna watch it. But I do actually, like I've said on the channel, I wanted to make a lot of money, like genuinely, not them fudging the numbers, but I want a lot of normies to see it and dislike it. But if it's a movie that some normies like, and if it's normie enough, Fast and the Furious is a huge movie. All they really, a lot. Godzilla vs. Kong was a big movie earlier in the year. People kind of just want to see shit blow up on screen and eat popcorn. You know what I mean?
I think so. I mean, they've been cooped up in their home for most of a year watching reruns of everything else. So yeah, the chance to see some kind of new entertainment, is going to be a big deal. And the Godzilla films. Okay, I've hated all the Godzilla films from Legendary Pictures. I have not liked any of them. I did like Kong Skull Island. That was pretty good. It was enjoyable. Godzilla vs. Kong. I mean, it was just kind of a big dumb fun movie. So yeah. And I took it for what it was worth. So
yeah.
And it seemed like the director actually kind of got it, because when people were screaming at them, over and over, it's like, excuse me, we want to watch the giant monsters beat the shit out of each other, please, and less people running around doing crap. So it seemed like the director actually listened to us.
They kept it simple. And I liked it. But like you said, I mean, I knew it wasn't Shakespeare. I just wanted to see, a dumb movie where stuff blew up. I mean, I still think they almost missed the mark with that because they almost didn't show enough. I mean, yeah, because it was just a lot of side plots. I hated all the humans. I wished any, if not all of them, would have died. I think some of the bad guys did, but they could have just gotten rid of all of them.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I mean, yeah, you do need some humans in there to kind of explain and move things along, but at the other points, it's just kind of dumb. I mean, like the humans actually stopping Mechagodzilla and all this other crap was just that
was the biggest letdown, Mechagodzilla. Like, I really wanted speaking of Civil War, I wanted the fucking Captain America and Bucky fighting Iron Man with Kong and Godzilla fighting Mechagodzilla. Like, I wanted that level of fight. With those three, like a real tag team where Mechagodzilla is kind of killing them both, and that fight just lasted. It was a squash match. It lasted like 5 seconds. I'm like, really? We built to this motherfucker the whole fucking show, whole fucking movie, and then the humans just squash him like that. What the fuck? Like, give him a good 5-10 minute epic little fight scene, epic battle, and have Kong and Godzilla have to work together to beat him. That was a simple task, and they fucked it up. Like, Kong versus Godzilla was not a perfect movie.
Mm-mm. And I honestly, I could not stand the design for Mechagodzilla at all. And maybe, maybe I'm just old school.
It was bad. Somebody said Ready Player One did it better, and they were right.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just, and that was not a good film, by the way, but it was fun to watch.
It wasn't. But the design of like that was superior. A lot of those designs in Ready Player One were pretty cool. It was visually cool.
Yeah, it was.
You know what? We were talking about effort.
Uh-huh.
I also think there's a talent thing. I feel like Hollywood has only trained itself how to do cool visuals. They have like totally, from a talent development standpoint, just given up on storytelling and given up on the other aspects of film and movies and TV shows and media in general. It's just visually cool stuff, explosions.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like if you sit down and use some critical thinking to look at their plots and stuff like that for their films, they're dumb, or they got holes in them like that you could drive trucks through.
Yes.
It's almost embarrassing because one of my favorite channels to watch is EFAP, and Mahler and those guys. They just, they tear those films apart. And Mahler, if you ever see this, by the way, I'd love to be on your show. But I love Mahler, I really do.
Yeah.
And yeah, Brightest Day, he hated the design, except the spinal painting. Yeah, my first thought when I looked at him was like, did they make this fucking Godzilla out of Legos or what?
Well, he'd be more expensive if they did that.
Yeah, he probably would be, but that's what he looked like. It's all bricky and blocky and stuff like that. And I don't know, maybe it's just maybe it's the old nostalgia guy in me or something like that. But I want, the old classic Mechagodzilla with the curves and the cool look and he looks like an armored knight or something from the originals,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does kind of almost have an armored knight design. There were a lot of flaws in that movie. I don't understand the design and use of Mechagodzilla at all. That was just not implemented well. But hey, it was a big dumb action flick. It hit at the right time. If that movie had came out in 2009, I probably would have skipped it or waited till it came on FX. But it came out right at the the beginning of the end, so to speak, or hopefully the end. We'll see, of the pandemic, and right as things start to open up, it was really the first big movie. So just hit at the right time. So it was like, oh, okay, so this sucks and this sucks, but I got enough explosions and fucking Godzilla shot his breath through the fucking crust of the earth. So I got enough wackiness and insanity. I was.
Yeah, Godzilla shooting his breath through the center of the earth was just kind of like, why?
I actually like that. I thought that was so like. That was such a like Sharknado moment. Like we know what this is. We're embracing it.
Yeah. Oh, and here we go. Let me bring this up. If everything can watch. Okay. Yeah. Now the thing to consider is, all right, somebody signed off on this right here. Yeah. Look at that.
Ooh.
He's
not good.
He looks like. He looks like a train fucked a building or something.
Man, Jesus, he looked better, I guess, because of all the dark shading, so you can't really see him when it's at night. It's hard to see. So he looks better or less bad in the movie than we actually see the design lit. It's just like, oh. What were they thinking?
There's some Terminator vibes in it.
But I know why they do that. I answered my own question. Actually, a few weeks ago, plug for my channel. You should be subscribed to me if you haven't already. We had R&B on the Culture Crime Fighters. Me and Matt, Fireball Productions, another channel you should sub to because we do the Culture Crime Fighters every Wednesday, and it's on his channel this week. But anyways, we were talking about Star Wars, and actually I think I released a clip of it recently, and we did mention, lost in all the wokeness and agenda. They made 3PO's arm red for a reason. It had nothing to do with story. There is, and I'm not sure what the contracts are like at Legendary and Warner Brothers, but a lot of times you can get a merchandise royalty for changes. So you come up with your Mecha Godzilla, and then you might be able to get, not always, but a lot of creators are being, especially the bigger name ones, are able to get a royalty on it. So that's why they have to have their design or their version. So,
okay, well, I mean, fair enough. I mean, I get it that, it's a new film, new century, new this, that, and the other. But they took that over something like this. I mean, come on.
That's so much more aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, it is. I think that's actually key to you, but that doesn't matter. I mean, it's a Mecha Godzilla. And I mean, yeah, it looks just as implausible as the other design, but it looks like it has some feeling put into it,
Yeah. The other design is just too try hard. That looks just like a little bit more, and that still has like its own vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they really did not do it well. And these are the guys that did Pacific Rim. I didn't know that, but that makes a lot of sense. Not you mentioned that, man.
And see, that's man. If we're gonna talk about Pacific Rim, I gotta say, the one thing I loved about that film that I don't know if a lot of people caught this or not. I think it was intentional on Guillermo del Toro's part whenever he was filming it and he was doing all the creative effects and everything like that. But the monsters, the kaiju that they were fighting, all had that kind of rubber suit look to them, and they moved like the old classic Toho rubber suit monsters. And I noticed it on the big screen. I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And then the sequel came out, and I'm like, "What the fuck happened?"
Maybe the execs didn't like that effect.
I don't know, but it was bad. I mean, the story was bad. The acting was bad. I fell asleep through the last half of it, and that's when you should be the most excited about a film, in the end stretch.
Yeah, but sometimes the front half of some of these movies are just too hard to get through. And actually, Pacific Rim, that's actually one of those movies. Like the first one, I kind of did what you said. Like I remember watching part of it and just doing something else and kind of never really getting back to it. And it was okay, but it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. Well, I still got all my old classic Millennium Godzilla films and Mothra up on the shelf. Right next to the other ones. Yeah. Now this is kind of a hot take, controversial opinion, whatever you want to call it. I bought Shin Godzilla without having seen it. And I don't know, man, maybe I'm just an idiot. Maybe I can't see into deeper dialogues and stuff like that. But since a lot of that film is supposed to be commentary on, the uselessness of men and the bureaucracy and all this other stuff, because it was like basically like a Fukushima protest kind of thing.
You're punching above my weight class a little bit.
Well, see, that's how I felt too, because it's like, okay, when I watched the film, the first time my friends and I sat down and watched the film, we're like, okay, there's a little bit of there's some Godzilla growing and all this other stuff. And we're like, okay, they're doing a build up. Boy, there sure is a lot of people talking, a little bit of Godzilla, people talking, Godzilla. Finally, we do get Godzilla, and it's the most badass Godzilla we've ever seen. I mean, he's shooting laser fire out of every orifice and just fucking everything up. And I'm like, oh my god, this dude is fucking scary. And we just didn't get very much of it, and it just went right back to a lot of talky. We can't do anything, talky. And I'm just like, who is this film made for? Because,
well, you know what? That brings up an interesting point. I'm just checking out the Wikipedia, which is always accurate all the time.
Oh yeah.
So it says that Shin Godzilla had critical acclaim from Japanese critics. So maybe there's and I'm not an expert. I'm not a weeb. But maybe that's the thing. This was made a little bit more for Japan. You mentioned it more as a commentary. Maybe it hit a little bit different for that culture than it may have here, where we have one kind of, we like Godzilla for one reason, and it still has a little bit of a deeper meaning for our friends in Japan, and maybe that was a little bit more geared towards them. So that's why that talky stuff, where, you know, and I didn't see Shin Godzilla. You know, I missed a lot of, because I'm only a casual Godzilla fan. I like, you know, like a lot of old stuff. Used to watch it as a kid, a lot of reruns, and that's something if I'll catch clips and stuff on YouTube. But it's not like I'm a diehard. But just looking that up, maybe that was the reason for the disconnect.
Yeah, you know, and I've since gone back and I've talked to people and I've read stuff about it, and they're like, "Oh no, man, that's like the best Godzilla film because it was actually bringing it back to its old roots, where he was a monster and a terrifying force of nature, and how man is helpless before him, and all they can do is sit around in their little rooms and talk and discuss and try to take futile action against this unstoppable force." And I'm like, okay, I get that. But I really would like to have seen more of the unstoppable force. Well, you didn't see all that much of Godzilla back in the original either. I don't care. That was way back in the 50s and stuff. Okay, I want to see, you know, we have the technology to have Godzilla go through the entire fucking movie from start to finish. Why don't we do that? That's what people want.
Yeah. And again, maybe it was an artistic choice. Like you said, they were trying to be a little bit that's almost the opposite of incompetence, where you're just trying to you overthink things. There was a little bit of overthinking. Yeah,
I could definitely see why they didn't do a theatrical release over here, because I don't think it would have done that well in the theaters. Just, I mean, if I had put both films, like, let's say, I hate to say Godzilla, you know, 2011, because that film pissed me off to no end.
Actually, that's one of the ones I did check out, and I was not that big on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like great. It was like 2 hours worth of shit and like 11 minutes of Godzilla. Fuck you.
Yeah, I was mad at that because I was looking for that to redeem 98, and it's like, this is just as bad, if not worse. Like,
well, you got to see more of Godzilla in 98.
Yeah, at least 98 had the Led Zeppelin song that Puffy covered. Like, at least we had that. Like, we don't even have eggs or nothing. This is just awful.
Yeah, the 98 movie is kind of stupid fun too, but it
is a little. There's some fun to it,
but it's definitely not worthy of the Godzilla name, which is why the Japanese only call it Zilla, because they said he's less of a god, more of just a big monster.
Yeah, they're not wrong to do that, and you gotta love the Japanese just for keeping it real. Wish we still kept it real in the States. I don't know what happened. Like,
yeah, they're pretty uncompromising in their vision, and I've said this many times. You know, it's like if some Japanese illustrator, an artist, and writer wants to write a story about a pair of sentient toenail clippers, I guarantee you it will be the coolest fucking story about toenail clippers you've ever read in your whole life, or a guy whose quest is to make perfect toast. That will be a fucking great manga.
I'm sure there already is a manga for the perfect toast one. They have a lot of food. There's the food manga thing is huge. Even though I'm not, I'm total normie when it comes to manga. I've never owned a manga.
Oh, ever. Wow.
I've watched anime. Manga, I remember when, you know, back in the mid 2000s when manga like really got big and it was like cool to have manga and shit. And I was just like, I can't. The color and, you know, I read the other direction that weirded me out, and all the kids. I'm not trying to judge that generation of anime fans, but they had those weird like nylon pants, cargo pants, and
Jinkos.
Jinkos, yeah. And they were just, you know, they were really baggy, and they were the chains, and they would just, you know, always be. You just see it, you know, college or high school, and it didn't matter race. It was this archetype. There would be black kids like that, Asian
Mm-hmm.
kids, white kids, Latin kids, but they all had the same uniform. They would all be sitting Indian style reading their manga on campus somewhere, and it was just like, nah, man. They nerd. I'm not trying to. I mean, obviously, I'm not the coolest kid on earth, but they just was like, yeah, this is too nerdy. I'm trying to get bitches and shit. I can't do it.
Well, I mean, that's the funny thing about that. You know, it's like fandom, nerddom, geekdom, weeaboo-ness, whatever you want to call it. It does transcend, you know, race and ethnicity. Because, I mean, I have more than one friend, you know, who is a non-Hispanic. You know, I'm a Hispanic, or is a Hispanic. And, you know, it's like they got gunplay and all this other stuff that they're into. And, you know, they'll sit there and they'll talk for hours about all this stuff. So... You know,
it literally transcends race. I mean, that was always part of the pop culture, but it was just huge for everybody. Things that were huge for everybody.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, one of the biggest cons is down here in my area is A-Con over in Dallas, and and that is the coolest thing ever because it's like, you know, everybody shows up and they're all in costumes, and it doesn't matter who you are under the costume or out of the costume or whatever. Everybody is having a good time. They're laughing, they're talking, they're having heated discussions over, you know, like who would win in a fight between like Saitama and Goku and all this other stuff. And, you know, what pisses me off is all these people coming out and saying, well, I feel like I was excluded from those things because of my race, gender, etc., etc. And I'm like, what a bunch of bullshit.
It is bullshit. What was the actress a couple months ago said like she wasn't allowed in the comic shops or some bullshit?
Yeah, that was that chick played Daenerys Targaryen.
Amelia Clark with her fucking period superhero, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, mother of madness.
Yeah, the arm hair Illuminati superhero, whatever was going on.
Oh,
but yeah, like what? You're making this up. You're lying. That is not true.
She is lying at her ass because, you know, one of my best friends worked at a comic book store, and so I would always hang out over there with him, and we would talk comics all day, right? And that's where I actually first learned about, you know, the first hero to come out gay back then was North Star, which I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, Amelia Clark Duncan, that's her. Thank you, brightest day. And
any relation to Michael Clark Duncan?
I hope not.
I highly doubt it. Maybe he was pounding the ass back when he was still alive.
She would have been kind of young. She'd have been kind of young. She's pretty young.
How old is she?
I don't know. Like when she's like still. I don't think she's even 30 yet, man. I think she's still in her 20s.
I thought she was in her 30s.
She might be by now, but I mean, when she started that show, she wasn't. But anyway, it's like, yeah, when women came into the comic book store, dude, we were so enthused by it because, like, oh my God, there's actually girls out there who like the same stuff that we do. We can actually talk to them about something. We have something in common with them. Yeah, you know.
And even as a comic casual, you didn't really start seeing women until the MCU started. Like early MCU, that's when you started to kind of regularly see chicks in the comic store. Before then, it was like, oh, it's, you know, it's like seeing a lunar eclipse a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Like a unicorn.
Yeah.
Thing of myth.
Especially if one was actually like decent looking, because I mean, rarely was that the case. Just to keep it real. But
that is keeping it real.
Well, I mean, yeah, like it's not like it's something that's going to be pushed aside. Now, I will say this, and it was probably you almost wish this era was back. There would be some people who get kept in general, but I don't think that was a necessarily a sexist thing. Yeah. Oh no, they were just gatekeepers. So it didn't matter that you're a woman or black, whatever. They just like, okay, who is this new person entering my environment? And what are they for real? Or, you know what I mean? And there's some good and bad about gatekeeping. And I think I can see people like that putting off their fan base, putting off potential buyers. Because I've been into shops and had the guy kind of like be weird to me. I'm like, all right, I'm good, man.
Oh wow.
I never indicated necessarily a racial thing. Who was I believe it may have been Adam Carolla. One of those comedians said, like, man, he was talking about the asshole neighbor he had. He was just a complete asshole to him and fucks with him and all this. And he said, you know something? If I were black, I might think this motherfucker is the most racist piece of shit ever. He's just an asshole. You know what I mean? He's treating me like shit. But if I were black, I understand why they would, or I can't remember if he was, I understand. I may be misremembering the quote in the person. But something along the lines like, okay, you can see how somebody who encounters somebody who's just a piece of shit in general may ascribe more to it. Ascribe like what's the word I'm looking for? Discrimination to it. Where I mean, again, you don't want to say it's okay to be a piece of shit, but you can see how that may happen. Even though it would have Amelia Clark again, I just think it was just her publicist told her to say that because that would have been edgy and smash the patriarchy or whatever. But
yeah, and
I believe that happens.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, it's like kind of like the saying goes. It's like, all right, if you run into somebody that day and he's an asshole, that's one thing. If all you run into all day are assholes, maybe you're the asshole.
Yeah, that's always a potential probability that a lot of people don't realize.
Mm-hmm. Because, Gary from Nerdrotic, who rumor has it he used to run a comic book store, will probably be the first person who would tell you it's like, if they have women behind the counter working the comic book store, guys will go to that comic book store. And I remember here locally, our comic book store had a girl who ran the registers and stuff like that, stocked comics, stuff like that. And she was awesome because I would always go to her to ask her, okay, what are you reading? Because you read the good shit and I need to know what to read today.
Yeah.
So, assholes exist in every form, in every medium, in every fandom, whatever. There's always going to be some asshole who feels threatened by somebody else. I mean, that's human nature, man.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, that's just kind of what happens, but that is not fandom as a whole. It never has been. I think we embrace everybody on every level from everything that we do, Yeah.
But I do want to kind of pay attention. I'm looking at Squeaker Mouse in the chat. First she says, no one really liked these other girls. That's why I don't go. Then she says, I did get told after you had the one you have highlighted at the stomping ass and Magic the Gathering that you're just a girl, so I went easy on you. To which the judge said, no, you got curb stopped.
Yeah, there's some dudes out there whose egos can't handle getting their asses kicked at Magic the Gathering. I got out of that a long time ago, and thankfully I did. Otherwise, I'd probably be a hell of a lot poorer than I am now. Just have tons and tons of cards to show for it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're the girl. Maybe you're a girl in the comic shop. Well, I don't know.
I can't tell you. I mean, you're right. I went to a comic shop at one point. Well, actually, not locally, but where I lived somewhere else in the South, and the girl was behind the counter. So you know what I mean. And she was I think she was like the manager / person there. So she was always there. So it's like that was why she was cool. But it was like okay, that became the thing. So I mean, but everybody has their own experience. I can't tell you. Like I said, I encountered an asshole. I didn't necessarily think it was racial. Maybe it was, and I just was oblivious. Who knows? But he was just an asshole. And I'm sure there are guys who are going to be, especially when we talk about competition. Nobody wants to lose to a girl. I'm sorry. It's just a thing in your head. Even though maybe we are misogynists. Maybe the feminists are right. I don't know.
I don't think they are. I mean, yeah, people do get pissy about certain things. I mean, but that's with anything. I mean, but I'll just to go on a little bit more. Industrial music is one of my passions. I love industrial music, as I'm sure you heard some of in the intro. Well, it was a girl who actually got me into industrial music because I would go visit my local Hastings back when they were open, and I'd be checking out their music section, mostly for metal. but then I would hear the industrial music playing because they had a girl who, ran that section. And after a while, I started asking her for tips and advice, and she actually just cut me a CD full of industrial music, all these different artists that she would hear. She would say, here, listen to these guys and these guys and these guys. And sure enough, by the time I finished that CD, I was, ordering tons and tons of industrial music and really getting into the genre. And it's like anything else, man. It's like you meet somebody who has a passion for something, and it rubs off on you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you do gotta account. Hey, there's some people, and there's also that what am I looking for? You remember the assholes better more if you go to a place 15 times, and like 3 of the times are unpleasant. You're gonna say, "Oh man, this place kind of sucks," which you probably should. You have 3 shitty. That's time to stop going to that store. But like, that also kind of skews your view. But again, I don't want to just act like I'm not in Tweaking Mouse's shoes. She might have really just been around, some complete assholes that talked down to her and shit. I'm not gonna say it didn't happen.
And I'm not defending this behavior, but I've been accused of mansplaining type behavior too, and it's like I don't mean to. I have autism, and I do tend to speak to people kind of like, from a different point of view, and I do tend to, my friends tell me that, well, you sound like you're very condescending when you speak to people, and I'm like, well, I don't mean to be. It's just, I don't condescend anybody on purpose. It's just that's just kind of like my delivery. But and I'm not excusing it, Squeaker, but it's possible you could have ran into people who are kind of socially awkward themselves and maybe don't know how to talk to women,
or people in general.
Yeah. Ironcaster. Hey, it's good to see you, Ironcaster.
People are in this community, and myself, maybe, I don't know. Went to a shitty psychiatrist that said I was, but she was shitty and woke. But I'm sorry to cut you off when you were saying hi to Ironcaster. Hey, Ironcaster.
Hey, man. But yeah, so it's like, pop culture, fandom and everything like that. It's all embracing. It's all like, we can all sit down and chat and have a good time and enjoy it together. We definitely can recommend movies back and forth. Oh, have you seen this? Or, oh, did you read this? And everything. Like I recommended Fist of the North Star to you at one point, and I'm like,
yeah.
And I pushed that pretty hard. That's like my favorite series ever. But
what makes it your favorite series ever?
Oh man.
I know that's probably a 3-hour question, but
I'll expand. Nobody's ever asked me. Okay, what makes it my favorite? All right, well, initially, I didn't think much of it. I thought, because my first contact with it was Nintendo, because I was a big Nintendo 8-bit player back in the day, the NES.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would see advertisements for the video game in the magazines. And, I thought, this is kind of interesting, but it didn't really interest me that much. Well, what I didn't know is that it was based on a manga and an anime that was out in Japan and was pretty big at the time. Okay. So I'm in my local Hastings, a few months later, and I see Fist of the North Star on the shelf, and I thought, oh, wow, it's a manga too. So I picked up the first issue, and that was published by Viz way back in the day. And dude, I was stunned because the artwork was so good and the storyline was so much better than I thought it would be. You have a martial artist who's the 64th successor of an assassination martial art, which involves using the body's acupressure points to fuck with their blood flow and kill them from the inside out.
Is it like I'm not sure if that's a real thing, but I've heard of that. Supposedly being a real thing.
Supposedly.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's a real thing or not. There is some pressure point based martial arts. I've studied like Chin Na, but yeah, it's similar to that. And the thing is that the the story, the art, and everything gripped me so much that I immediately had to go and find more because I thought, man, this story's good. And, you know, video game be damned. It's like it was like a never-ending quest. Because back then in the early 80s and late 80s, it was hard to find anime. And it was hard to find manga. The only way you could find it is if someone had been like overseas in the Air Force or something, and they had just happened to tape it and bring it back to the United States.
Yeah, or like I knew people who had like magazines and shit, and they could order out of back of like magazines or shit like that. Mm-hmm. Or catalogs, or not magazines, catalogs. Like they somehow would find these like really obscure companies to order like the actual like Japanese version of subbed and dubbed Dragon Ball Z and see how different it was from the one we saw on Toonami.
Mm-hmm. And they were expensive too.
Yes.
Mm. Yeah. But yeah, that was where it started from. And years later, I actually got to go to Japan, and I picked up a complete set of the Tankobon originals. Well, actually the Aizubon versions of it, which are like the hardback, the really nice covers, and the real beautiful printing and everything else, and the what do you call it, the bookmark built in and all that stuff. And I've still got them packed away somewhere. But man, I mean, just story wise, artwork wise, everything else. There's a reason why it's like one of the top 3 manga ever created in Japan. And what most people don't realize is it's the progenitor for shit like Dragon Ball Z. Because Dragon Ball came out a year later, in 82. Fist of the North Star came out in 81. The stuff that is out now, Grappler Baki, Kengan Ashura on Netflix, all that has its roots in Hokuto no Ken, Fist of the North Star. And even, the late Kentaro Miura.
You know how to pronounce everything? I'm like, whoa.
Well, I spent a little time over there. But Kentaro Miura, who, recently passed away, even he admitted straight up, he said a lot of my inspiration for Berserk is based on Fist of the North Star. So
So it's one of those like seminal works that just that inspired a lot of works after it, basically.
Mm-hmm. And it upsets me because it hasn't gotten more recognition. It hasn't gotten more love over here in the United States. It's still largely kind of underground. Viz never managed to complete the entire run of the series. They tried and they failed a couple of times. Then they gave the license over to another company called Gutsoon Entertainment, and they ran for about 8 masterwork illustration copies, and then they failed. And here recently, Viz got the license back, and they are printing brand new hardback editions of the manga. I highly recommend them. I'm hoping they'll finish it this time.
Yeah.
Because it's an awesome story. And I think everybody needs to read it.
So I have actually, in you saying that, I have a question about anime and manga that I don't know. Again, I'm normie. I did watch a lot of anime, the Toonami days when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, unless you consider, what is it, Dragon Ball Abridged? Unless you consider that.
Those are great.
They're great.
Keeps kicking me in the dick.
Shout out to Team 4-Star. But outside of that, I've not been as big in anime, even though I wanted to get back into it with the boom recently. I got a list of which Fist of the North Star is on of stuff I want to watch and just haven't gotten to. But do you think that was so great?
That was great. I laughed my ass off at that.
Oh man, there's so much of that. So great. Some of the best parts are where they just kind of like explain and expound upon shit that actually happened, and you realize that was fucking crazy that this thing actually happened in the fucking series. But that's more of a tangent. But as far as anime and manga, one thing I see is the gift is this curse. The gift of anime and manga, why so many people and so many different people are in it, regardless of demographic, is that it offers so much. There's so much diversification. Yes. Diversification and specification from genres, and you know what I mean? It's a whole subculture, but a lot of that's intimidating for normies. But that's not my question. Or maybe it kind of is. you think there's just so much that it's hard for it to quite catch on? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this next generation, anime and manga will be the dominant culture even here, dominant content even here, or if it already isn't. But it's like such a wide net as far as like anime. It's just saying anime and manga. It's like that's like saying music. It's like there's a lot to it, and it almost like, how do you even start? You know what I mean? If I asked like 50 different people, hey, what's a good anime? I may literally get 50 responses.
You would, yeah. And that's the thing, man. Anime and manga are so wide and so varied. And the thing is, most people who watch anime are not aware of all the different manga that exists. Like I said, I was over there for a little while, not long enough, but I picked up weekly comic books and stuff like that, and there were tons of good stories with great artwork. And some of them were about the most mundane shit in the world. I mean, I remember reading one manga where the story was about a white U.S. foreign guy who was in Japan trying to learn how to be a sushi chef and trying to learn his technique and get it all down. And, stuff like that made me appreciate what sushi chefs have to go through to learn that art,
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, there's something cool because like we don't get that shit from comics anymore. Or maybe we do on the indie level, but it's just like, that's going to be just as potentially recommended as Fist of the North Star, as Trigun, as Trick, as Death Note, as obviously some of the bigger ones like One Punch Man and My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer. It's like, wow, that's like 8. There's like 6 or 7 or whatever many different series. All
Attack
with
on
their
Titan.
own Attack on Titan. But they all have their own like specific. They're not similar at all. Like Batman is similar to Spider-Man in a way. Like they're both. There's totally different characters, totally different worlds, but there are some like similarities to them, or some. They're a lot more similar than some of these animes are. Some of them are. But like the variance of getting what you want to me is like, okay, read anime. Well, which one? So sorry if I'm not making sense or quite making my point.
No, you're making sense. And this is kind of a new thing to me because recently there's all these buzzwords associated with anime and manga. I can't tell you any right off the top of my head because I never grew up learning them, but the kids these days, they know them. And it tells you.
They make up words for shit that EDM. You remember when EDM came out? Now everything was EDM. It's like, wait. EDM didn't exist in the 90s. This isn't EDM. No. You made that word up in the 2000s. You can't just backtrack and, now this is a part of No. Not that word.
Yeah, I've always said that about music. It's like everybody created all these subgenres because they wanted to put everything in boxes that made it convenient for them to pick up what they wanted.
And that's almost a similar thing with the manga.
It is, and that's why they have all these different things like ecchi and all these other things. Like, and I'm like, I don't really flow with the terms, and maybe I feel stupid, or maybe I need to turn in my weeaboo card because I was a weeaboo way before weeaboos were actually a thing. But these days it's kind of like, is the story interesting?
You're a first wave weeaboo.
Yes, I very much am.
Third and fourth wave weeabooism.
Yeah. I don't really pay attention to the label of what kind of anime is it. Is it a hentai comedy? Is it this? Is it that? Is it what? I don't care. Is it a good story? Yeah. Are the characters interesting? Yeah. Okay, I'll read it. I'll watch it. I don't care. And maybe more people should be like that. But of course, if you got special interests and things like that you want to explore, like maybe you want to explore, dudes just, tearing each other to pieces with weapons and stuff like that. Okay, go watch Berserk. You'll have a great time with that. If you want to watch, like the ultra secret super spy assassin dude take people out from impossible shots, check out Golgo 13. Been around forever, still going. And this is something I was discussing with a friend of mine the other day. He, we're both subscribed to Funimation, and we both, watch I watch probably a lot less than he does. He watches all the time. And the thing is, it's like, he tells me, it's like, yeah, there's a ton of animation on Funimation, but, you know, like maybe 1 in every 7 is good to watch. And I said, yeah, I've noticed it's gotten kind of diluted, because, you know, they're kind of sticking with what makes more money versus what doesn't. You know, I think that one of the next manga that's going to be translated to anime that I know of is one of those food-based ones where I can't remember the name of it, but the guy is literally, he's crushed to death by a vending machine, and he is reincarnated as the vending machine, and for some reason they're in a dungeon, and this is like a Dungeons and Dragons type setting, and this girl literally carries the vending machine with his spirit around in it, and he can only communicate with the vending machine by putting out helpful items to her.
Hey, I'm tapping out on that one. That's gonna be one I'm not gonna. That's another. As almost the next question is I'm kind of interviewing you about the anime as a normie, being a complete normie. That's too weird for me, man.
Is
Anime, no, yes, yes. That we are in a weird. It's like I didn't like Fooly Cooley as a kid. I really hated that. And I'm not sure if it's beloved or something you love, but when I saw that, I was like, this is so stupid and weird. I don't like it. And it was so, to quote Peter Griffin, it insisted upon itself. It just thought, it was so confident in how funny it thought it was. And it was just like, jokes didn't land. It's just like, oh, God.
Well, I mean, you know, like they got other series that are starting to pick up popularity. Like, there's a guy who is like an ex-Yakuza, or he's a Yakuza. He's just been released from prison, and he's like a single dad. So he's trying to be a reformed Yakuza single dad. So he's doing stuff like, you know, cooking his daughter breakfast and all this, but it's super duper exaggerated Yakuza fashion. And, you know, this is, you know, and that's what I keep saying is like, it doesn't matter what they write about or what they draw. It's almost always going to have a good story because they're not trying to inject politics and bullshit into this stuff. They're just trying to tell a story and have a good time. They're trying to entertain you for the duration of the time that you're reading it or watching it. And that's why the Japanese stuff is always going to be good.
Yeah. And it's sad that the American stuff and just Western stuff in general has just fallen off from that. Like, you have to get back to that place because it's embarrassing. Just from a cultural standpoint. But I have another question. You mentioned like hentai comedy and shit like that. Do you think anime goes too far in the other direction as far as the sexuality and a lot of this stuff? I mean,
well,
like,
okay,
especially when you talk about normies.
Okay, well, it's a cultural thing as much as anything else. You know, Japanese have no shame of their bodies, and frequently body humor is a big subject for them. So, you know, for them to do, you know, they're fully aware of, you know, what big tits and all this other stuff, you know, how people feel about those things, and they insert those things. It's called fan service. Yeah. Now, I mean, our problem with it these days is we're still kind of coming from that Judeo-Christian repressed, you know, morality where, you know, have to stay covered up, have to keep the woman covered, have to, you know, can't be sexual, all this other stuff, male gaze, etc., which is like another wave of that coming in now. And of course, all this old Japanese stuff with them coming out and saying, look, here's this girl with great big giant boobies in a very thin bikini, enjoy. Of course, that's problematic for them.
Yeah. I mean, the whole Judeo-Christian thing, because I mean, there's some argument that maybe it would be better for covered up because the thirst trapping thing is its own scam. See OnlyFans, but like I'm almost referring to just like in the same way that I'm weirded out by a vending machine giving helpful items to communicate. Some people, not even the offended, not even I'm not talking about SJWs. I'm talking about just like rando person my age. Once they see big, you know, Uzaki-chan, they're gonna like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? This looks like what? You know what I mean? It's just it weirds people out.
Well, and maybe so, maybe rightly so. But that's the thing; it's not all like that.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on the kind of manga, and there's where you get into the little breakdowns of this, that, and the other. If that's something that doesn't interest you, then don't read that kind of manga or don't watch that kind of anime. That's why they classify it all like.
Now, again, that's the gift of it. So much to get. You don't have to. I can ignore that. But I'm just saying, like, you think that might weird people out as far as. And I know these are stupid questions, and I apologize, man.
Nah, it's not stupid at all, and it makes sense to me because it's like, these are questions a normie would ask, and that's okay. Yeah. That's perfectly fine. Like, okay, I hate to mention it again, but Fist of the North Star. Okay,
no, keep mentioning. That's fine.
They have women throughout it. They only ever had one scene where a woman was nude. Pretty much in the entire series, and we're talking about a series that went on for like 3 or 4 years. So obviously the female form wasn't a big exploitive thing in the comic book because the guys who wrote the comic and were drawing the comic knew what people were tuning into was the story, the cool martial arts, the depth of the story, the intricacy of the artwork, and everything else. They knew their audience, and it's still kind of the same thing now. It's like the Japanese know their audience. When they write something and it's got like a cute girl in it, expect something that's gonna be kind of racy in there.
Yeah.
It's just
I'm not even saying this stuff as a standpoint. We got hey, I like we were showing a Fire and Ice. I like ladies are pretty, and. So yeah, and all ladies are actually beautiful, Squeaker. Like most ladies, what I mean. Most women are hot, even if they don't think they are, or someone said that they are. But my point is just like, I love the same way I don't watch Twitch streams. I think a lot. In general, I do think there's a class of normie that when they hear anime and manga as a replacement for comic books. These are the questions they ask or don't ask and just have their own opinions about and just say there is a stereotype of anime still that exists. A lot of that has been broken down because there's so many people who are fans of it. But I definitely think there are a lot of people who got into American comic books or got into Western sci-fi or science fantasy or whatever we're talking about. And now that that's fallen and everyone says, go to anime, go to manga, go to anime, they say, but this stuff, you know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And I do think those people, and maybe that's where I'm trying to ask from, and maybe I'm one of those people and just kind of talking it out here, but there is just sort of like, I just don't know if I really want to go through this. The blessing is so many people are into it. You can get recommendations and kind of talk about what you want and then get a recommendation that suits it. But when you're talking about like, on your own, it is a bit weird. Like, oh man, what do I get? Because I'm.
Then my first question is always like, well, what do you like? What interests you? What's your deal? I mean, what do you like to watch? What's your favorite movie? And I usually go from there. Like if somebody tells me, okay, well, my favorite movie is, like I like zombie movies. Okay, I'm gonna recommend High School of the Dead first off. So there you go. And that's how the conversation starts, as far as I'm concerned. It's like, what do you like? Because there's an anime, there's a manga out there for it. There's a niche for everything that you like. Yeah. And it's been made already, or it's in the process of being made. It's probably the same story been told 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
But, manga does have one small disadvantage in the fact that, all of the big comic book companies have a universe, right? Because we have Gotham and we have Metropolis and Star City and all those places in the DC universe, and all the different heroes live there and they interact with each other, etc., etc. And same thing with Marvel. All the heroes live in New York, pretty much.
Yeah.
And manga doesn't have that because every manga is its own independent creation, and it takes place in whatever universe that the creator wants. So you're constantly having to readjust your perceptions to fit whatever that world is, rather than have a continuous, familiar landscape that you're used to from Western comics.
That is a good point. That's a good point. That's the curse is as much as gift. So the thing with that, and I think there's an advantage to that. The advantage is there is a beginning, middle, and end. because these universes go on forever, because Gotham's an established thing, and Batman has, there is a Batman Begins and shit in the DCAU, but there's not a like the Batman mantle getting passed down. There's a constantly having to recycle and never age, and these characters never die. So there's just always stuff happening, and now the lore gets so convoluted that I mean, as much as we hate how they change so much of the lore when it comes to these depictions in movies, you can understand how a writer might say, like, how do I I'm either just gonna keep writing like a derivative story and write the same story we've gotten a million times, or I am gonna do something different, even if it's not woke. It's just like, how do I live up to this? Because I can't end anything. I can't have any stakes. Like the Riddler can never die completely and be dead, ever. That could never happen. And as a result, how do you tell stories with stakes? You can just tell, like, can only tell one shots. Where in a manga or an anime, you have volumes and there's a beginning, middle. Sometimes there is no end because these things go on forever. But you know what I'm saying? There's like there's stakes. There are stakes that are lasting and they go throughout the entire series.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. What you're talking about is something I'm planning to talk about tomorrow on my Dungeons and Dragons show in the morning. But yeah, the anime and manga has pathos, which is, the word that describes feeling for somebody or for something. And the thing is, manga has it because since it is its own little contained universe and these characters are the creations of a single creator, he can do whatever he wants to with them. And kind of to go back to the Fist of the North Star reference, because this is an easy reference to go back to for me. One of the characters who was very well loved in the anime and the manga is a character named Rei, who is a master of Nanto Hoken.
Were they the bestest ever? I'm sorry.
No, they weren't the bestest ever, but he was kind of a rival to the main character Kenshiro, because you have two schools of martial arts. You have the Fist of the North Star, and then you have the Fists of the Southern Cross, of which there's 108 different schools and 6 masters. And Rei is one of the 6 masters. So he is more or less equal to Kenshiro when they first meet. And during the course of the story, Rei dies. And it's a traumatic event for Kenshiro, and it was also a traumatic event for the readers. And it's handled with a lot of pathos, and it's meaningful because, Rei's not going to magically spring up back to life at some point in the story.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Does Rei come back after 3 years?
No, he's dead.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, it's like, and that's the thing. The manga characters have stakes.
That's what I mean. Real quick, I don't want to go too far without answering Squeaker's question.
Sure thing.
I mean, yeah, I would say relative. If you compare it to manga, yes, way more in the comics. Even though I'm still kind of a normie with that, but I like those characters. So I've watched every anime thing on them, and I'll buy like action figures. And I used to collect so much Batman memorabilia. A lot of it's been lost over the years. I still have a lot of it. And I'm just a real big fan of certain characters. Like I love Batman. I've read a lot, or about trades and stuff like that. But I would say definitely much more than like I said, I've never owned a manga. I've watched some anime, but manga. To the second thing she says, but the universe continuum should lead to canon change, right or no? And you're right on that because things do change. There are sometimes stakes, but it's all like, again, because of the nature of a DC or a Marvel. This is a corporately thought of series of stakes. Yeah, they'll make Iceman gay. That's changed. You know what I mean? But like, or Tim Drake gay or something like that, or whatever. For whatever they'll do whatever suits them. They'll kill Robin and they'll bring him back as the Red Hood. Which, I mean, I like that character, but it's just like there's always they'll do whatever suits them, and as a result, you're not getting genuine storytelling. This is, again, some of these things are well, Iceman and some of the gay stuff is recent, but the killing Robin, that's from the 80s. You know what I mean? These are still They killed Gwen Stacy. Now you have Gwenpool and you know what I mean, Spider Gwen. Yeah, it's an alternate universe, but it's like that character has come back to be used in a way. You know what I mean? They always figure a way to ruin stakes one way or another.
Well, I mean, it's like the only character I can think of in Western comic books, who died and definitely died and did not come back from it, as Captain Marvel, the Kree from the Marvel series. And that was a big deal, the death of Captain Marvel. That was like a landmark moment for comic books, and they have never brought that character back. Now, they did have an alternate reality evil version of him from the Cancerverse that showed up to be a menace for a short time, but that was over pretty quick. But for the most part, they've stuck to that continuity that this character really did die, and so far he ain't coming back, because that's I guess they don't want to screw that up. That's like a big moment.
I thought you were going to say one of the three characters that will always stay dead because they have to. I mean, they've had alternate universes of all of them, but again, they all have to stay dead. It's Uncle Ben, Martha Wayne, and Thomas Wayne. They got to die. They all got to die. They
do, but I mean, it seems to me like they're always kind of finding ways to bring them back or work on their story, or there's other verses and stuff like that. So
obviously, I'm thinking of Flashpoint for Thomas and Martha, where they're Batman and Joker, and Adam West is the only Adam West Batman is underrated. That's another thing I'll watch. I have the DVD or Blu-ray. I say DVD because I'm old. But yeah, that is such an underrated watch. So, in fact, there was a meme I wanted to put out using a recent song and that. But like that, it's such an underrated watch. And I think one of the things that are underrated is, yes, it's campy. Yes, it knows it's campy, by the way. It knows what it's doing. It's well aware. But it still to me is a valid telling.
It's fun to watch.
It's that's what makes it, like, the writing on there is like, you think it's all silly, and you think like, wow, this is actually really good, because what they're able to do is still have stakes in a world that is so ridiculous. That's what's so impressive about that show. A show that is obviously trying to be ridiculous, that's obviously trying to be funny, still maintaining a semblance of stakes from episode to episode. And it is, I think, episodic. I always get episodic and serialized mixed. But they're pretty much self-contained, some continuation stuff, but it's self-contained. But it's a really fun and underrated watch. I mean, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Some people are like, this is too silly for me, or this is too dated for me. But it's charming. Especially the on Blu-ray, it looks beautiful with all the colors. It's just it's a fun watch. Adam West Batman. It's an incredibly fun watch.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I would call like corny fun. It's something that you could put on, you can laugh at, you can enjoy or whatever, and just get on with your day. And of course, my favorite episode of that, right?
What?
When Batman meets the Green Hornet, because Bruce Lee.
Yes, Bruce Lee is on it as as
Kato.
Of course, it is. It's Kato. It's kind of an iconic episode.
Yeah, and I hate to mention Fist of North Star again, but that character Ken Shido is based on like a combination of Bruce Lee and Max Rockatansky from Mad Max. There you go. Yeah. But yeah, I love Bruce Lee. And that particular episode was great, because you had your two cool shows at the time, which, Green Hornet didn't last, unfortunately. Yeah. But
even Batman only lasts 3 years.
Yeah, and I think actually that's kind of an interesting showcase between the two, because if you watch the two different shows, Batman is a little bit more campy, silly, and more self-aware of how ridiculous it is, whereas Green Hornet really tried to be serious.
Yeah, it did, and both were good in their way, man. God, as you think back, that's kind of an epic crossover. Like, they didn't have tons of those. You know what I mean? So for that to happen before the MCU, we had the Green Hornet and Batman.
And it's like, you don't see that a whole lot in any kind of shows at all anymore. I mean, if like, say, what are those two shows? Okay, Big Bang Theory. Let's say if somebody from the Big Bang Theory showed up in character at another show, that would be like,
that would be cool.
It would be cool, but they don't do that. No, they don't do that though.
Yeah.
I mean, we did briefly have, Angel and Buffy kind of,
Yeah.
crossovering here and there, but I mean, basically it was the same couple of shows. So that I don't know if they really counted.
I mean, obviously, we're skipping over the CW verse, which I mean, the first few shows were good. First few seasons of it were solid. I liked the first couple seasons of Arrow and Flash, and Legends of Tomorrow. I thought that I only saw the first season of that, but there was a fun energy about what they were doing, and they really screwed the pooch. That's like we all now accepted the CW verse. I mean, I know people have said something positive about Stargirl. I know Black Lightning exists, but we take for granted being not that great. But man, they really could have been something cool. It really, because there really wasn't. Even Daredevil on Netflix wasn't out, so there was really no superhero based thing on TV as far as regular television. Now they got Loki and Winter Soldier and all this other stuff. So it really had that market completely to itself, and it just ruined it. It did nothing with it. They kept making changes. They made everybody a hero. They used the same tropes from show to show. It just it just evolved.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be honest. I kind of have a lot of hot takes on some of those because I don't necessarily agree with most of my fellow geeks on a bunch of these. Because for one thing, I love DC's Legends. I thought it was fun. I think it's fun. I think the characters are funny. I was really upset when Leonard Snart, and I love that name, was taken out of first season, and then but the other guy managed to pick up and become funny, and it's like I've kind of enjoyed those characters. It's fun to watch that show. I don't take it real seriously, although there were some heart-wrenching moments in that show because I did get into those characters. I did enjoy them. And I didn't really care how stupid it was.
Watch Legends. I didn't have a problem with it, but just like when that verse lost me, I stopped all of it. It was sometime, I can't remember if it was fourth season. I think it was fourth season of Arrow, second or third season of Flash. And I'm like, this is just stupid. And it got so stupid. Every now and again you check back. It got even stupider.
Well, I never really caught on to Arrow. It's like I got into Arrow late. I didn't get into it until Flash started getting popular. But here's the thing: it's like Arrow was always kind of too dark and too this and too that. And I used to complain every single episode to my friends. It's like, Jesus Christ, he's been on this island for 5 fucking years. I guess we're gonna have to endure 5 seasons of him being on this island. Maybe by the time he gets off this island, the show will be over. Because it seemed like he did more on that island than he does in present day. But
he did. The first 2 seasons to me had the right balance of that, and they used the island, but even that got tropey, and then the story started to break down. I really feel like Arrow only had 2 seasons of television, and after they wrote them, they just what do we do now?
Well, actually, it wasn't until 3rd season that I really started to enjoy Arrow, and that was the League of Assassins storyline. I
did like that. I liked the first half of that season. Mm-hmm. I like up until he dies or whatever. I'm like, man, that was cool. And then when he was supposed to take over the League of Assassins, I thought that was kind of clunky. I mean, that was fine. It was fine. 4th season, really, with Damien Dark, I said, nah, man. I'm tapping. And you know what? Even though I will give it that, you mentioned fun, they did have some, he was Damien, I can't think of the guy's name, the actor.
Yeah, I know.
He's very entertaining. And there were some entertaining elements. But that's where I just felt like, okay, we're going really too far with everybody being heroes. And then Flash started to get really shitty. It was the sort of precursor to the All Candace show, which it became. And it's like, oh, man. I saw the writing became on the wall after, those seasons. And you just like, yeah, man.
Well, I always liked Flash. And that was the first thing I noticed. I told one of my friends, because we were watching it at the same time, Arrow and Flash, and I told her, I said, what I like about the Flash is tonally, it is so different from Arrow. Whereas, Arrow is dark and gritty and kind of realistic and all that. Flash is like fun and lighthearted, and it feels more like a comic book, especially that first season. And
first season of Flash is excellent.
It is
excellent.
And I'll highlight two things in that first season that made it the best. The first is obviously the end of the season where he does go back in time and he's with his mom and everything like that. Oh man, I cried like a goddamn baby, man. I swear. I was just like weeping big ugly tears.
That was really, really good. I think that was by far the best of the CW first season of Flash. At least that I saw.
I agree.
It was emotional, despite being like it still had stakes. You still cared about what happened.
Mm-hmm. And the other part of it, and I think this was brilliant casting, was choosing John Wesley Shipp to play, Barry Allen's dad in prison.
Yeah.
And every time Barry would go to prison to talk with his dad, it's like it was I felt like somebody was just like jamming a knife into my heart, because it's like, oh my god, this hurts so much. I'm weeping and stuff like that, because his delivery is so gentle and calming, and he's in a shitty situation, but he's still trying to be a good dad, and just with a great line delivery and everything like that. I was like, oh man, this is just beautiful. And then of course second season they let him out, and it's kind of like we never see him again. I mean, it's true, right?
Yeah.
They let him out of prison. It's like, okay, well, good seeing you. Yeah. Now, when they did bring him back as, the older Flash, Jay Garrick, that made me happy. And of course, every time Jay Garrick Flash showed up, he stole the show for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some,
I mean, I did like that they did that. That was really cool.
And there was other cool things too. I loved King Shark. The King Shark episodes are fun. The Grodd episodes are fun. And they had good characters in Flash. I mean, Killer Frost and all these other characters, which is kind of strange, because isn't Killer Frost like a Firestorm? Well, I mean, they did have Firestorm, didn't they?
I probably, yeah. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, because they bought DC's weird. That's another kind of issue with their canon. They bought even up until the 90s, because they bought the you said Firestorm with a Milestone as well. So they buy out Charlton Comics, and they buy all these different companies. What's the one that fucking I wish 24, because he's way more into, like, I'm into him, but I'm still kind of casual. He knows the histories way better than I do.
Oh yeah.
But the Captain Marvel, all these canons, all these stories, and all these characters are really like other comic books that were bought and then shifted into the DC verse. So that's kind of a common thing / issue with the DC universe. But you know what? I will say this: Flash kept its comic book bookiness. They did kind of make Flash Peter Parker
a little bit,
but like it was still cool. And I really like Grant Gustin. He's a really likable Flash and likable Barry Allen. He runs better than the pregnant woman choker.
Yeah, he does. Oh man, God, I'm so not excited to see the Ezra Miller Flash movie.
Me neither. Me neither. I really think, as far as that goes, like they're hoping that Michael Keaton can sell that movie, and maybe he can. You never know how normies are going to react. That's my only thing. I probably will see it. I probably won't be. I'm not gonna say. I don't want to. It's not the Get Indicted hotline, but I may be even though Amber Heard is in that universe, I may be going Johnny Depp as far as
there you go,
being a pirate of the Caribbean. But yeah, the first few seasons of Flash, man, there was some really fun stuff, really well done stuff, and again, a comic booky. It felt like a comic book TV show.
Yeah, it did.
I have a hot take. Even though it's probably better by like technical standards, I would take the first season of Flash over the first two seasons of Daredevil because like Daredevil was so unpleasant at times,
Mm.
and its attempt to be grounded. We talk about fun and we talk about enjoyability. They were just more enjoyable, even if they're not better. I know the acting and the fight scenes. There's some incredible fight scenes in Daredevil that look way better than anything in Flash. But like, man, there's something to be said about fun. Daredevil at times was just not fun.
I think every time Elektra showed up, I hated it because I could not stand that character.
I didn't like her. I didn't think. I thought she was a bit off. Like they could have done Elektra way differently and way better. She was annoying.
She was super annoying.
She was so self-assured, and I know what they were going for, but oh man, Squeaker Mouse, you're a trooper for having not seen all this or a lot of this, and still be riding with us. Thank you for being here. She was a bloody nut job. She was just yeah, man. If your gender roles were reversed on that one, man, I want to talk about some creepy shit. Like I thought she was terrible, man.
Yeah, that would have been.
And I can't blame the actress, but just I don't know whose idea that was.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're gonna do Elektra, don't do it like that.
Yeah, don't do Elektra like that. Of course, first season of Daredevil was strong all on its own, just because you had so much of the Kingpin in it, and it's like, wow, man. I mean, they got Vincent fucking D'Onofrio to play Kingpin. I'm like, Jesus, man. That's like getting a whale in there to play that part. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, but something? I thought there were times where they didn't do him. There were times where they did him perfectly, and then there'd be spots where they just showed him too weak at times, like in private. I'm like, I didn't like that. Kingpin was never like with him. Sometimes the way he interacted with his chick, I'm like, the Kingpin would never like Kingpin. I know always had a strong pimp hand, and sometimes she was like the catalyst of some of things, and I'm like, that's not quite right.
Well, I mean, maybe so. This was definitely a more thoughtful Kingpin than we've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that was another thing. I thought he was a little less like he had his raw moments, but I felt like he almost should have been a little bit more cutthroat, a little bit more gangster, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe
for
so.
lack of a better term.
No,
maybe that's just my own bias. I just wanted him to be a little bit more like doing like pulling off some shit that was like, whoa, I can't believe he just killed all these people or did all this stuff, like did something really brutal and would love to have Vince's love children. There you go.
Yeah. I always thought Kingpin was kind of a weird character in the comic books. I mean, he's a cool character, but the difference is like, okay, you see Kingpin in Daredevil, and he is like this fucking raw force of nature not to be fucked with. But you see him in like other comics with superheroes and shit like Spider-Man, and he's almost a joke.
Yeah. Well, to me, a lot of Kingpin's power has to be like the people around him or that he hires.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, and that's kind of a weakness of just the MCU. Like a lot of times, Kingpin might hire an established villain to go after. I mean, I guess he does Bullseye in one of the seasons, but like maybe they should almost start it off with something like that. Like over Kingpin should be established that like, oh, you don't want to fuck with the Kingpin, and they kind of did. But I don't know. Maybe I wanted something more intense, more akin to like an HBO villain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe so. And of course, second season brought my favorite character ever, which is the Punisher.
They did him well. They did excellent in the second season. He was honestly, he's probably better in the second season than he was in his own show.
I kind of have to agree. I mean, I do have both Punisher seasons here. My problem with the actual Punisher show is they didn't let him be the Punisher. There was too much of this, I don't want to be the Punisher, and I just kind of want to drift along and do this, and the other. And I'm kind of like, dude, man, come on now. Frank was a fucking murder machine. Are you serious, me?
Yeah.
Just fucking... How hard is it to do this? How hard is it to play or to have a character whose sole motivation is killing bad guys and being tactical about it. I mean, that is a show. I mean,
you know what I'm realizing as we talk through this? The precursors for the woke were there.
Ooh, you think so?
And it wasn't hardcore like it is now, but like, why wouldn't you have the Punisher just be what you said? Well, because your politics don't align with a character like the Punisher, so of course he has to question it. Why? And then Elektra, again, she's this strong alpha female who's annoying all the time. You know what I mean? So like, there was that's why that character existed. Now, it wasn't actually what we get now, where it's so extreme. But I think that was kind of the start of those type of sensibilities starting to leak over into the characterization, to where you ask, like, yeah, why don't you just have the Punisher just kill a bunch of bad guys? Yeah. It's like, well, because I don't like the Punisher, so he should be thinking about it.
Yeah, he should only be killing people when he's like really forced to do it, or or whenever he's actively. And I'm like, no, Punisher would do it anyway.
Like, Dexter already exists. Why is this a problem?
Yeah. Well, I guess they didn't want to make it too much like Dexter, but
well, he's more brutal. He's less, smooth.
He's like, yeah,
he's trying to,
I don't know. It's like
blow the house up.
It's like writers can't write Punisher for the films. It doesn't seem like, because it's like, I've read Punisher comics for years and years and years, and the dude doesn't just walk into a fucking scene, guns blazing, killing everybody. It's like, the dude is tactical. He plans. He sets traps. He checks. He double checks, and if shit's gonna go wrong, he won't do it. But when he does strike, he strikes with just pure venom. I mean, he'll fuck shit up, and he's not an idiot. And the best example of Punisher, the best Punisher ever written, and I will fucking fight anybody tooth and nail on this one, is Garth Ennis's Punisher. Because that was the golden age of Punisher, as far as I'm concerned, and we will never see its like again. Because Garth Ennis hates superheroes. So, of course, handing him the Punisher was perfect for him, because he could sit there and he could make fun of superheroes and have a good time.
Yeah. It's weird that the Punishers, I mean, I know why, but it's like, goodness, Punisher is just such a simple character to do right, and they refuse to do it. And honestly, Thomas Jane one is underrated.
Yeah, no, I love the Thomas Jane one. I really do. I love it. Of the three of them, that is my favorite Punisher.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have a lot of takes that aren't like everybody else.
Did you see that?
The Dirty Laundry. I love that fucking That was beautiful.
He had Ron Perlman as a cameo. He shows up. I was like, where the fuck did he come from? I thought this was a fan-made film, and then he shows up.
And I've never seen anybody destroy anybody with a bottle of Jack that way, but
man. That was so great. I really like the Thomas Jane one. It's of the pre-MCU that doesn't include Spider-Man and X-Men, where you had all these, the Daredevil, Electras. Well, I like Blaze. I don't know. But like, that's one of my favorites. Yeah, I think Blaze is probably my favorite. But that Punisher is like my next one.
And that's what pisses me off, man. I'm gonna be straight with you, okay? Blade is what brought Marvel back to the cinema.
Yes. Or to the cinema in the first place. I mean, what movie? Corman.
Well, they tried over and over and over to put Marvel in the cinema before, and it always failed. It always went to home video, or it always went to TV.
Yep.
But yeah, Blade was what put Marvel in the cinema, and Stan Lee didn't even cameo in that one, man, or in any of those. That's kind of shitty.
No, it is. Blade didn't just put, to me, Marvel back in the cinema. As an old fogey, I remember when, like, man, those bat nipples. If Blade didn't come out the next year, I don't know if the MCU happens, man, because those bat nipples for that 12-month period left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. But then when Blade came out, there was like, oh, we can do comic book movies, and not just the big two, but a lot of like indie comics. That's actually the beginning of the IP farming. Yeah. Because now it's like, oh, we can do we want to do the cool stuff. We don't want to just do somebody in spandex. We want to do like some vampire hunter or some cool little stuff. So I think that opened up comic book movies in a
Yeah.
way that it doesn't get appreciated.
Oh yeah, I agree. And there was a lot of really hot properties that were good back then too. Like Dark Horse had a whole series of comic books that were good, and I've always loved Dark Horse comics. But they had a character called X, who, man, if you could find back issues of X, do it, because it's good. It's clever. It's very clever writing. It's a good character, and it's an interesting story. Yeah. And it's probably kind of cheap too if you want to find it, because I don't think it sold real well. That and Barbed Wire and all that, and I have tons of those comics sitting back in my boxes. But yeah, man, Blade pretty much brought the superhero back to the cinema as far as I'm concerned, and it never quite got the respect. And not to mention, it was rated R. It
was rated R, and I don't know if holds up is the right word, but I was watching it recently, and it was like, man. I don't know if it's nostalgic, but it's a fun movie and it's real good.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
I even like the third one, and everybody's like, "Oh no, the third one."
I like the third one too.
I like the third one.
I got a hot take. I mean, the first one's my favorite, but I like the third one better than the second one.
Yeah,
I was really entertained by Triple H and Deadpool. Like they were really they were fun. It was like the second one was probably better. But
visually,
again, it's probably better visually, and some special effects didn't hold up. But that third one was really fun. I'm a sucker for fun, man. I can account for something being technically better but less enjoyable. Like I just said with the Flash and I was like Deadpool, Daredevil comparison.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I can see that Daredevil was shot better, it was acted better, and all that. But man, the first season of Flash was fun. Which is so much more fun. So in that same vein, Blade 3 was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. And if we're bouncing back and forth, it's like it's funny because I tried to watch Supergirl on the CW, couldn't get through that first season. It just bored me, didn't interest me. I mean, I've never really been a big super person fan to begin with, because it's like the character is like, I can't feel anything for Superman, because it's like the guy can do anything. So how do you feel for a character who could do anything?
Man, I wish he's one of the characters I wish I could write. When I was younger, I kind of felt similarly, especially compared to Batman. But as I've grown older, it's like he's actually a very easy character to write for. But he's a character that this modern Hollywood cannot do. They don't have the earnestness to pull off. They just cannot write Superman correctly, because to me, you give him villains that are still powerful to him. Like, yes, you can give him more physical villains like Deadpool. Oh my god, I don't know why I keep thinking of Deadpool. Doomsday. It's deep. But the reason Lex Luthor works, whether he's a scientist using his mind or out of modern depictions where he's a billionaire or whatever, it's like he has a type of power that can still, impact Superman in a way outside of strength. You know what I mean? You nullify his strength by giving him issues that he can't punch his way out of, that he has to think. And those are creative ways of doing it, while still having enough, fight scenes and stuff if you're talking about a movie, or enough action. But the more problems Clark Kent has that he can't punch his way out of, the better. And you also have to understand, like, Clark Kent is the guy. You know what I mean? It's not like Batman where he's Batman. Superman, yeah, it is him as well. But it's like he wants to be a guy on a rap, yeah. No, rap. I can rap, but I'm too tired to rap 70s. I actually need to work on some fucking music. But like Superman, as far as Clark Kent goes, he's not, he is Superman, but he's also a guy from Kansas. And that's the like, okay, everybody has an idea what they would do if they had the power of Superman, but he was raised by the parents he was raised by, and he has the morals of always wanting to help people, but he does doubt himself, and he's not like this always sure of himself guy, and he does have issues and problems that being Superman don't solve. He was really like a proto Peter Parker in a way.
Yeah,
and
in a way.
those elements need to be expounded, but so many people just get intimidated by his power and they don't write them, they don't break them down, and they don't present challenges that would make Superman interesting. He's not a hard character to write for, but there are things you have to do to make him interesting. You have to still, if you cared, you could do it. The people that do so either don't care, just so incompetent.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're too busy, putting their self-insert characters along with Superman, or redesigning his costume for the 50th time. I don't know. Well, anyway, man, I know you fixing to head out. I mean, we're already like almost 2 hours into this. Just want to say, man, I'm so grateful that you came onto my channel and sat down and rapped with me for a little while, because rap means to talk too.
Yeah. It was fun. This was a lot of fun, man.
And maybe next time I could get some other guests on, like Keith Moncrief. If you haven't been in a room with Keith, you need to.
I have actually. I think one of episodes with Jed, I think he was on, and he was talking to me. He's breaking down MASH and a lot of 60s TV, and just he broke down a lot, man.
Mm-hmm. That dude is like an encyclopedia of movie and comic book trivia. I mean, it's just he can very quickly take over a show just by showing off what he knows. I mean, no disrespect or anything like that intended. I mean, that's a hell of a gift. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, I'm glad you came on. I really enjoyed having a talk with you, and I'm glad you got some questions from me too. So
yeah,
maybe we could do it again sometime, huh?
Yeah, definitely. When I have time, trying to do a lot of different stuff with my channel, and also have other I just have a lot of stuff going on. But I definitely wanted to do this again. It was really smooth, really fun, and I got to learn a little bit more about anime. We got to talk about a bunch of other stuff.
Absolutely. All right. Well, here's what I'm going to do, man. I'm going to let you pimp your channel for me.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll let you show off a little bit there. All right.
All right. Yeah. So I hope I've done enough to get you to sub. If I haven't, I mean, I'm like I said, I am kind of in flux, but I'm getting into a groove with what I'm doing on the channel. My name's Vigilante Williamson. I talk about pop culture and other things and whatever the hell I want to at times. Shifting a lot of the politics stuff into just normal generic stuff. Not that there's, unfortunately, politics are in everything, so there's always that slant. But I just talk about stuff that's going on, and I'm starting to do a lot more shorter videos in addition to the live streams. I also host a show every Wednesday at 6 p.m. with Matt from Fireball Productions. It alternates channels, and I love it. Last week we had Cameron Pasha. Also,
nice.
Check for clips on and that whole podcast, which is doing well. So, a lot of people are watching that replay because he's been hitting a lot of things and has been excellent on everything he's been hitting.
Cameron Pasha, everything.
He needs to do a podcast. That's obvious, man. He's incredible. But yeah, like I will, and I also have Robert Meyer Burnett on like a month ago. So nice. Yeah, we've been able to have been gracious enough, and Chrissy Mayer on like a month before that. So we've been blessed, and a lot of guests that we've been getting, even on our small channel. So please check us out. We also, when we aren't able to get a guest, have a really good show as well. So yeah, check us out, and check me out, and please, I do other stuff too. I do retro gaming, do a lot of stuff, man, and I'm trying to expand and change and figure things out. And I thank you guys for coming along the way. So,
oh man, see, we didn't even talk gaming. We could have talked another hour or two about gaming. Easy.
Yeah.
But and I'm going to tell you something right now, man. I was subscribed to you. I'm glad I checked, because as I was posting your link, I noticed that I wasn't subscribed to you. I'm like, what? So I resubscribed just to make sure. So guys, always check your subs.
Yeah,
because I didn't know.
They've been taking the subs away from me even this week. I keep seeing them come up and down. So yeah,
weird, man. I don't like that, but yeah, I am resubscribed to you, and
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I was subbed to you before, I thought, and then it was just like, as I said, I'm checking the channel, I'm like, I'm not subbed. What the hell?
I appreciate every sub, even if it's a resub. I still appreciate it.
There you go. All right, man. Well, this has been your T-shirted historian hanging out, rapping with Vigilante Williamson. We talked a lot of pop culture. We talked a lot of anime, talked a lot of comics, talked a lot of movies. And I definitely see, that there's a lot more we could talk about because the fandom is endless and the things that we love, are kind of endless too. And I definitely see that, we're all kind of all accepting of everybody for the most part. So,
yeah,
it's a good thing, and it's great to be able to talk with other fans about stuff because, we don't get to do this. And, I like to feel like I'm sitting at the lunch table with my buddies and we're talking about shit like, like who's going to beat up who, Superman or Saitama,
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you take care of yourself, man. And we're going to end the show. Thank y'all for hanging out with us.
All right. Peace.
Searching for you.